Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at another leak list for the next update, but this one has a bit of a twist, and I think this twist is actually pretty fun. Instead of just giving the vehicles, it's riddle time. Turns out, in War Thunder, we have a bunch of riddlers, and now we can try and work out what these riddles are supposed to mean. So in this video, we're going to go through some ideas. We had a look at them on stream, and so if you are interested in discussing these things, or even just letting us know what you think the answers are, make sure to stick them in the comments. It's always fun going over this stuff with you guys, learning about new vehicles, and also going over different ideas. Let's get into it, and as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel so we can do some more stuff. So the first one is a large cat with a sharp weapon. Now, let's be honest. In military terms, cats are used for so many different things. Germany, basically every single one of their ground vehicles based around some kind of cat. But there are some that it would make more sense for, especially with the sharp weapon. The F-14D, of course, which is the Super Tomcat. It's the one where they massively upgraded it in the 90s to give it much better engines and also much better internal systems, meaning that it could have access to better radar, better RWR, and also technically better weapon systems. Even in the early 2000s, it was further upgraded with the Rover 3 upgrade, which turned up. So that could be basically the best Tomcat that we could ever see in the game. Another vehicle that it could easily be is the Leopard 2-140. Now, there was a time in history where everybody decided they need bigger guns on their tanks. The Abrams, you had the M1 Thumper, which was a Abrams chassis with access to the 140mm auto-loaded gun. You then also had stuff like the T-80, which was equipped with a massive gun, a 152, in its standard turret. And the Leopards were no different. They decided that they were going to try a bunch of different things. The Swiss built one with a 140mm, but Rheinmetall themselves from Germany also decided to try and fit one in. So there is a vehicle called the Leopard 2-140. It basically has the 140mm Rheinmetall gun, which is a lot bigger than the standard 120mm L55, but it's basically, it might be slightly longer, pretty much the same length, but the main thing is it fires a much bigger penetrator than the previous ones. Now, these things really haven't come around yet for tanks, probably because of shift of resources into different areas, but there was a ton of these projects, which would be kind of cool to see. The next one is the boring option, and it is, of course, the PUMA with the spikes. The spike is one of those missiles which would be seen as a sharp weapon, since it's quite spiky. You could technically have a bunch of different IFEs or AFEs with the spikes on it, but the PUMA one is the easy one to point towards, because it's one that Gaijin have actually talked about in the past, adding to the game, and also giving access to the spike missile. The next one's a little bit tricky. It's horns for thorns, hooves for grooves, beast of the east, forward swords. Now for me, the one that I look at this is the Alvis Saladin. The Saladin is actually a British vehicle, but it's been used in so many different wars by so many different places. It's been in service all over the world, and one of those areas where it's seen a lot of service is in the Middle East. It has fought for the British Army, the Australians, Oman, Sri Lanka, Kuwait, Indonesia, and even the Sudanese have turned up with it, and many others. This vehicle comes in many different forms, and it's another kind of six-wheeled vehicle which is pretty mobile, not as mobile as the Fox. But the cool thing about the Saladin is, first of all, it uses the 76mm, the L5A1, which is kind of more of a short-barreled 76, designed more for use of HESH and things like that. But there was also a bunch of different variants where they tested different things, including much larger weapon systems, which could also be pretty fun. The next one is a common type of lizard found in warmer environments, and there is actually a ton of vehicles which are named after lizards or general stuff, but the two fun ones are, first of all, a South African vehicle. This is the RG-34 Iguana. This is just a mine resistance ambush vehicle, so it's very much just like an APC designed to protect whoever's in it, but that wouldn't really make sense in the game, right? It is operated by a bunch of different nations, but it doesn't really have a way of being offensive. But guess what? There's a variant which has a 90mm on it. It actually uses the same gun from the Eland, which we already have in the game. So it basically uses something that's very similar to the Cockerel 90 as a fire support and anti-tank variant. So we could see something which is very interesting to see based off this kind of APC. The other vehicle is a Soviet AA machine, which is based off an amphibious platform of all things, the 9Ka-33 OSA. This, the NATO reporting name of it, is the SA-8 Gecko, and basically it's a standard surface-to-air missile system developed in the 60s and put into service in the 70s. The only real interesting thing about it is it should technically be amphibious, but also at the same time it's a pretty heavy platform, but it's based off an amphibious kind of truck. And the missile itself also is one which would have a pretty decent operational range and actually has a guidance system for it of RF close, which I'm not sure if we've actually had in the game yet. It also is the 9M33 M3 missile specifically, which has a dual thrust rocket motor, and I would have to once again have a look at some of the missiles we have and see if we have similar stuff in the game. But that would just be another kind of SPA platform between 9.0 and 10.0 for the Soviets. A mythical creature filled with vigor. There's only really one vehicle this can be, and that's of course the J-10 Vigorous Dragon. This one is also known as the Firebird, but it's the Chinese equivalent to kind of the modern day F-16. It's very similar to it in how it's all set up. It was introduced in the early 2000s and has all of the weapon systems that you would want from an early 2000s Chinese vehicle. Very much designed for air superiority, very much designed around the kind of delta wing and also canard design. It's one of those which China has been fielding for a while now with a bunch of their different vehicles. It's mainly designed for air-to-air combat, but as always with vehicles nowadays, it can do a bunch of different things that it wants to, and also has a bunch of controversy around it when it comes to its findings and also where it comes from. And to me, those types of vehicles are always the funnest, because reading the history sections and the dev blogs always are very much all over the place. It's nearly a Mach 2 capable aircraft, but not fully, and also has all of the standard air-to-air missiles you would see on modern Chinese jets. The next one's a fun one. It's a person who practices a recognized sport in the Olympics. So we have two choices here. The Su-24, of course. This is the Sukhoi vehicle that we actually looked at the other day. Its reporting name is the Fencer, and obviously fencing is an Olympic sport, so would make sense. This is a massive vehicle. It's kind of a development off stuff like the Su-22, Su-17, fills a very similar role and has been in service since the 70s. Basically, it's one of those you'll see all over the place because they made a ton of them, and they were farmed out to a bunch of different nations at the same time. These vehicles are designed for more ground attack purposes, but can play the multi-role if they really need to. Mostly, it's a really fun vehicle. If you want to see more about it, I made a video going through it basically a few days ago. The next one is the Boxer, the good old AFV, the armored fighting vehicle, which was designed by Germany and also the Dutchy boys, so maybe it gets into the Benelux tech tree. Once again, boxing is an Olympic sport, and has been actually mired in a lot of controversy this Olympics, but that is a discussion for another time. If you don't know what the Boxer is, it's another one of these 8-wheeled, massive armored vehicles that is designed to do a decent chunk of damage, depending on which variant you're looking at. Some of them are just basic APCs, some of them are generally reconnaissance vehicles, but the ones that make the most sense coming to the game would be the ones which usually have Bushmasters on them, or some kind of AA setup like the Skyranger 30, which has access to a Skyranger 30 turret, which fires the 30mm cannon, which has access to a set of rounds which are very similar to the airhead ammunition that you find on stuff like the PUMA. Also, you would have Stingers and Mistrals on it too. So the Boxer comes in many different variants with many different weapon systems and also just general reconnaissance variants. This one is something you could easily see coming to the game.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.